Announcing participant.
Dennis Eggert, Commissioner, Corporate Services.
Good evening and welcome. If we could please call this meeting to order and start with a moment of silence for prayer or reflection. Thank you. If we could just get a roll call of who's on the line.
Sure. We have Brad Mains on the line, Energy Commissioner, and Dennis Eggert, the Commissioner of Corporate Services.
Anybody on the line missed? Okay, hearing none. If you could please mute your phones and go ahead.
First, we have adoption of our agenda.
Any additions? Seeing none, accept it.
Next, item 3.1 is the Medicine Hat regular City Council meeting of September 8th, 2020.
Any errors, omissions? Okay, seeing none.
Next, we have under presentations item 4.1, on-demand transit presentation.
Stan Schwartz.
And we have Brian Mastell, Commissioner of Public Services, who will be speaking to this item.
Welcome, Commissioner Mastell. Thank you for stepping in. Go ahead.
My pleasure, Your Worship, members of Council. Mr. Dykstra may join us, and if he does, that may be fortuitous for me if you have detailed questions, but I'll certainly do my best. I intend to give you a backdrop around some of the developments that we have in our transit system, and I'm quite excited to talk about them with you this evening and help with the communication plan that was started last week out to the community. As you're well aware, our transit service provides a needed transportation option to many of our community with limited alternatives. In fact, a survey conducted last year of our transit ridership indicated 55% of our riders do not have a car. That said, we have recognized that we have a number of routes during certain times of the day that see low ridership numbers. Those that are boarded on the bus rely heavily on the service, but there remains considerable space for more riders, or in other terms, underutilized capacity. Because of this, our community and our management team remain committed to exploring alternatives to the current system, seeking higher efficiency without compromising service availability. We have challenged ourselves to find ways to provide efficacy in terms of geographic coverage and time of day availability throughout the city and do it in a more cost-effective way. This speaks to two of Council's strategic priorities: community safety and vibrancy, and fiscal responsibility. In recent months, the impact to ridership due to COVID has further reduced use levels, and longer-term change in ridership behavior, although not fully understood today, we can confidently say it will be transformed permanently. For example, I expect the delivery of education through post-secondary institutions will be forever biased towards increased virtual settings. One of our busier routes historically was carrying students to and from our college. As a result of these changes, we expect we will never return to similar ridership levels experienced at the college pre-pandemic. One of the areas that has seen tremendous advancements due to technology in recent years is logistical routing and dispatching. If you think about what Amazon has done to transform the retail industry, the advancements at companies like FedEx or Purolator efficiently determines logistical patterns to move millions of packages from retail centers to your home doorstep overnight efficiently.
Commissioner Mastell, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
My support showed up perfectly timed.
if you want to
Thank you.
tap him on the shoulder or you want to continue, it's up to you.
I'll continue. Thank you. Rideshare applications developed by companies like Uber dynamically connect and dispatch drivers and passengers instantaneously. This technology was being adapted to urban settings and starting to transform mass transit systems. With the impact to ridership during the pandemic, we've seen heightened interest and development in this sector. We're extremely pleased to have been part of this evolution and are excited to introduce an on-demand system to Medicine Hat. We're starting with introducing it next week in the northeast and northwest quadrants of the city during evening hours only. This is an exciting step forward for our city and how we approach transit service delivery. I'd like to take an opportunity now to show you a short video regarding use of the application, then provide council an opportunity for questions. Maybe ask Kathy if she can put that up now.
Hello, Ryder. Thanks for following along as we show you how to book a transit trip through our smartphone app. At the end of this video, have all the tools that you need to get around quickly and easily using on-demand transportation. Let's dive in. First, download the app through the iOS App Store or Google Play Store. Next, open the app and tap Register if you are using the service for the first time. Otherwise, tap Login. Enter your cell phone number and tap Confirm. Now, you will receive a text message with a verification code. Enter this verification code into the app and tap Confirm. Next, we ask if you'd like to opt in to receive notifications. We highly recommend that you do. Notifications allow us to keep you in the loop before, after, and during your journey. In order for the app to work, we need to know where you are and your local transit agency. Please tap Enable Location. We're almost done setting up your account. Enter your first name, last name, and email address to update your profile and tap Confirm. Welcome to the home screen. See that blue dot on the map? That's your location. To book a ride, tap Where to. By default, your pickup spot is your current location. To manually enter another pickup address, tap on Current Location and search for a new point of interest or address. And select your drop-off location by searching for a point of interest or address. Next, enter in any additional trip details. To request an accessible vehicle, tap on the wheelchair icon that you see on the screen. You can also add riders like companions by tapping on the rider icon. When you're ready, tap Request Ride to book your trip. Congratulations, you've booked your first ride. You'll now see a summary that includes your vehicle details, pickup and drop-off location, any walking directions, and your estimated pickup and drop-off time. If you need to cancel your trip, that's no problem. Tap on the Cancel button at the bottom of the trip details screen. At any time, you can view or hide your trip details by swiping up or down. If you need to walk to a pickup point to meet your vehicle, the map will help guide you. Submit your trip feedback by tapping thumbs up or thumbs down. You can also provide additional feedback by leaving a comment. We love and appreciate hearing from our riders. Thanks for riding and see you soon.
Now maybe open the floor for any questions if
Sure.
you have, Your Worship.
Anybody? Councillor McIntosh?
Thanks, Your Worship. Mr. Mastell, I guess I'm very excited about this whole proposal and what this could look like for our community as it moves forward. My question relates to somebody who does not have a smartphone, cannot download the app. How does that individual move around the city once this pilot starts?
Yeah, thank you for the question, through Your Worship. People are able to still book a ride by phoning our dispatch center. So we are available to help them get it booked. So we'll still use the application through the dispatch center, but we'll work with people to address those bookings if they don't have access to the application or a smartphone.
That's good. Yo, okay, Councillor Samraj?
Thank you, Mayor Cluxton. Commissioner Mastell, these systems, they look great when we've planned them, and I understand how the system is supposed to work. Can you tell me what might go wrong with this type of service delivery?
So we've, and I say we generously, so the transit folks and Mr. Dykstra has just joined us, and I may refer to as questions arise here, have done a lot of thinking as well as observing what's happening in other municipalities as they've introduced some of these systems around some of those things that could go wrong, and developed a very robust mitigation approach. And in large part, the reason we're introducing it in a controlled way in a certain area of the city and evening hours only is it allows us to address some of those things that may arise and make sure that we do have a comprehensive plan to help avoid any of those challenges that may be experienced. So some of the things that certainly come to mind is thinking about people adjusting their approach from a scheduled fixed routing system to where they need to book one. We have the logistical aspects of routing a bus or a unit to that site and getting them picked up and dropped off where they're going to. So there's certainly some adjustments that need to be made both on our driver behavior side, but also on our patron side that is different than what they experience today in a fixed route system. But I can assure you that we have done a lot of thinking on how we support that, and we'll be monitoring very closely how the introduction of this system in our community is going and adjusting where needed.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Thank you, Worship. Commissioner Mastell, thank you for the presentation. I have a number of questions, so I'm going to start by saying that there's a lot of excitement and anticipation about this pilot project, and I will say that juxtaposed against some of the pilots that we've done in the past, we've had some successes and some less than stellar successes, but that should never stop our desire to improve and identify efficiencies that will not only have, I would imagine, a savings end, but also improvement for delivery. And so you're creating an anticipated improvement process, and I think somewhere I heard the word, it's going to revolutionize how we do and how we transport. And certainly it's not lost on me that other transportation means like Uber and others have used technologies to create a system that is very robust and immediate. And so I see the marrying of that to a public transport or transit system as being quite practical. So my question is, can you just in general, I have a number of questions and I'll throw them out, and you don't necessarily, they might amalgamate to some extent, but my question is around for the person who who's inquiring about, other than they saw the app delivery video, what kind of improvements are they looking at when it comes to this ridership? Is there, again, we talked about the device dependency, and you've answered that, but how is the drive or the time improved or optimized? Is this something that has to be done in a low demand environment on a low demand route versus a high demand environment and a high demand route? For those who have concerns about being anonymous when it comes to this app, obviously there's a need to put in a lot of demographic information, which I think to the majority of people won't pose a problem, but there are some who may feel that that poses a compromise. Maybe speak to some of the rollout steps. So we're going to try this, it sounds like, on a route in the evening hours. Maybe if you can speak to, if that works for said time, where are we going from there? How is this a little bit different than maybe the former dial-a-ride? Although you can still dial in, how is this different other than the technological aspect? And yeah, I think those are some of the questions I have to start.
Through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, I picked up a few questions, and if I miss any, please ask again. So the, I think I'm going to ask you to maybe ask me which question you had there. I was trying to collect them in my head, and now I've got them all boggled up.
That's fine. You know what, the main ones I wanted to know is, if you had to capture how this is going to optimize and improve response time, or other than there's an interface component with your phone, which is a device almost everyone in society has, not everyone, but majority of people do. How is this going to, if you had to capture the essence of how this is going to improve ridership or improve delivery, other than they can see certainly where their route starts and ends and the anticipated time, is there an improvement? I think for a lot of people, there would be a question of efficiency and improvement of time. I know in my day job, there's some people who utilize transit and have spoken to me how they're impressed with the transit system in our community. These are new people who have come to our community, but have, and not in a negative way, contemplated the time aspect that it takes to get from A to B. And certainly there are going to be some routes that are going to be more difficult and more lengthy. But just can you talk about the general improvement of the ridership through this new means? Maybe we'll start there.
Yeah, thank you for repeating that for me. So maybe a few things I'll comment about. So as we think about how this fits into our transit system, we believe it looks like a feeder system into a core fixed routing system. So it's not envisioned at this point in time that it's a pickup to a destination type solution through on-demand, although that could be the case in certain areas, but it quite likely is going to allow us to extend our geographic reach further into the outlying areas. The virtual bus stop that would be set up may be more proximal to where the pickup point is, and it would bring somebody into a core fixed route where they would transfer onto our typical fixed route that is more efficient if we have the volumes on it. So we're going to move people in lower volume or lower boarding areas that are on the outreaches into a core system. The benefit from a user perspective is certainly going to be highest for those that are comfortable using an application. So the ease in which you can get on there, input your pickup details, and have that quickly responded to through an application. It's not a manual interface where somebody has to receive it and do the routing. That's the technology advancement that we've seen that would be quite different than what I think people are thinking about from a dial-a-ride system. Somebody would have been on the other end of a telephone and thinking about how do you develop a route for the demand that they're receiving. And the technology can do that real time in an efficient way that is beyond what a person is able to do in terms of turnaround speed. So I think that's a significant difference in the responsiveness that a user will experience, that those are thinking about a dial-a-ride of the past. This is going to be quite different from a user experience perspective. The efficiency comes from that routing, but allows us to do point direction of the transit unit when we have somebody that's actually looking to get on board. In our northeast, northwest areas of the city, we know boarding levels are quite low in the evening, but we still have the fixed routes moving on the predetermined schedule, regardless if somebody's getting on the bus or not. And so that's where the efficiency comes from our perspective, but maybe is less important from a rider's perspective. But I think the ease in which they can access transportation through the application and how quick the responsiveness will be the benefit to the rider.
Just thank you for that supplementary then. And you spoke to it, the pickups and drop-offs, or pickups in this case, would probably be more proximal to where they want to get on or live, for that matter. Is that one of the other benefits of this? Is that there's endless variety of pickups and drop-offs to some extent?
Yes, and that is one of the changes that will be felt by the community that'll be a little bit different. That we would have transit units maybe traversing on roads that typically you wouldn't see a transit unit on. So the community as a whole, although they may not be using transit, may start observing that you would have a transit unit picking up people on a block that you typically wouldn't have seen a transit unit frequenting. So that could be viewed as a benefit to a user, so more proximal for where they would like a pickup. But you may have others in the community that will now see transit buses right now, but maybe in the future it'd be smaller units incorporated into our fleet, picking up riders in their neighborhood.
Just very quickly, one last one. So I don't want anyone to be left with the impression that I'm questioning this new initiative and pilot. I'm quite excited by it, and I think it has a lot of benefits that the riders have been looking for and will want to see move outwardly into more routes moving forward. So we're quite excited by it. How will you gather or gauge feedback as far as successes is concerned, or failures if that's the case? But where obviously you can take anecdotal information from riders, but is there going to be a formal component to the kind of review of this whole pilot program?
So Gord might want to help me on this one. So you would have seen on the video there is a feedback option within the application that's immediately following your ride, that riders will have an opportunity to convey their feedback real time. We'll also have the anecdotal feedback collected from both our drivers as well as through the transition period. We'll have some supplementary support on the transit units, and we will be seeking input going out and soliciting that as well. And I don't know if there's anything further that Gord might want to add to that.
Thanks. Commissioner Mastell, I'm assuming you want the microphone in front of me. You touched on, there's 3 primary channels. And Commissioner Mastell touched on 2 of them. The app, of course, has the ability to rate the trip and accept user comments directly. We currently have a phone number that anybody can call and give transit information. And we're developing a component of Shape Your City so that we can go out and directly to the community and say, how's this affecting you and what's your input, whether you're a user or not a user.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hirsch.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I'm quite ecstatic that we're embracing technology to the extent of uncracking a nut in transit that's always been a very big capital outlay of money. And I guess the argument to the taxpayer is the resulting benefit. So I believe in transit. I think it's something that we definitely need. So I'm pretty pleased that I think in both ways, both the reduction in cost, but flexibility to the rider is going to be seen on this. So I'm very happy and very excited to see the results of it. The question I have, and if I think of it as a rider, so do I have the ability of picking my time for the pickup, but I have to keep in mind that I'm going to get dropped off at the closest regular route bus, correct? So bearing in mind, would I say I need to get picked up by 7:50 p.m. and have a 5-minute drive for my 8 o'clock transfer to the bus? Is that how a person should be thinking? And the second piece is there consideration for, like we have an Outlook, you can have a recurring appointment. So is there going to be capacity for a rider to have a recurring request, and instead of just potentially every day having to book the ride?
So thank you for the question, Councillor Hirsch, through the Mayor, Your Worship. There are things that the system can do that we won't be doing at launch, just to keep things simple while people learn it. So at launch, it will be basically real-time trip requests. So you would say, I want to travel now, here's where I am, or here's where I intend to be in shortly, and where do I want to end up being dropped off. We also have the capability of having you pick the time for your pickup or the time where you want to be delivered within the same day. And we have the ability to turn on subscription trips or future trips and control the number of days in advance that a rider can book. We're going to wait for some feedback from the users on how fast we turn those aspects on, but they're certainly there, and a number of other capabilities that you won't see at launch, but it's pretty robust.
So you're effectively pledging patience, but there's more to come.
We're excited too. Yeah, we see potential, but we want to tread slowly and make sure that we're successful.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, Your Worship. So first of all, my compliments, Commissioner Mastell. I'm a great believer that if a city is going to have public transit, it must meet the needs of those who need it and use it. But this pilot project has worked in other communities, as you said. Sault Ste. Marie is one. Cochrane, Alberta is another. And making public transit more efficient to meet the needs of its users is important, as Councillor Hirsch said, the cost. We subsidize transit in our city, our taxpayers, by about $7 million a year, give or take some dollars here and there. But so that's a large fee, and we see so many buses running on routes with one or no people in it, because you guys have now done the data as to which routes are more popular, at what times, and so this pilot doesn't destroy the present system. It just is taking a very small portion of transit to see if, in fact, transit on demand is a viable alternative to getting to people who, up to now, don't even get a bus service. So I compliment you and your team and the team of transit. I think this is a great step forward. I think we all understand that technology and changes are happening at such speed in our society today that always examining how we do things, how we can better do things, how we can save our taxpayers money and yet still provide a good service. So I tell you, I'm ecstatic. I think you guys have done the right thing. You've checked out the places that have used it and how it works. And I think that's complimentary for you as well. So you're not going into this blind, and I think you've made that quite clear in your presentation. So again, on behalf of myself, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Friesen?
Yeah, Your Worship, thank you. I just had a few comments to wrap this up, since Public Services has been involved from the very beginning. And thank you for your comments, all of you, and for the presentation, both of you. I'm also excited about this. There's been a lot of, I'll call it soul searching, into how to look at best providing transit into the future. And I'm just really encouraged by the potential of this pilot project. You know, everything has its pluses and minuses. There will be people that wrestle with some change here, but I believe that the good folks at Transit have done their very best to mitigate a lot of that concern about change that may arise. Just a few things from my observation that are real pluses here. One is, it's not just for people with cell phones. Now, as Councillor Dumanowski says, most people have cell phones, but not everyone does. But it doesn't matter, because you can still phone and get the same service. You can still phone and get the same support and assistance, whether you have a cell phone or not. One thing that wasn't mentioned was, I guess I'll call it some mentorship. So for the first couple of weeks, staff are going to be on the buses, not just the driver, but some staff will often be there to help guide the passengers if they have questions or they're unsure about what to do. So there'll be some additional support that way. I think that's really important. People will be able to see when the bus is coming. You saw the map on the app demonstration. So instead of standing at a bus stop for 15 minutes to half an hour or whatever, when it's cold especially, you'll be able to see where that bus is, and it might mean you have to wait only 5 minutes or 7 minutes or something, which is a real plus. This also was not mentioned, special transit riders, this will be great for them, because I don't know if you realize this or not, but when you take special transit now, you have to book it many days in advance, about 7, I'll say 7. And so it means you have to be completely organized if you have an appointment that comes up and you can't book it 7 days in advance. You may not be able to get special transit, those kinds of things. This will allow people the flexibility to have much more flexibility in their lives. And it may also allow some current riders of the special transit buses to use our regular buses because they are all accessible. So it's a wonderful feature for those riders who use special transit. It will allow way more flexibility with routing. I mean, there may be some routes now on the fixed routes that don't have many riders. But this way, the people that where the need is the greatest will be seen when those calls are made. So as was stated, you might see buses in totally different places that they were normally, or you might see a stop you'd never seen before because the demand was there, but it wasn't on the fixed route. Great features. There are other potentials, and that has been elaborated as well. I think for me, there's sort of 4 biggies here. One is increased efficiency, which we've looked for a long time. One is the potential for cost effectiveness. The third one is flexibility, which I think is great. But the big one for me is the benefit to riders, because there is a great amount of benefit here. So when people get accustomed to the change, they will, I think, embrace this, and hopefully we can move the pilot further along.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you. So something I sort of missed, I should have, because I think this is important too. Here's a list of the dates that you folks are dealing with the people in Northeast Crescent Heights and Northwest Crescent Heights to show them how the app works, riding on the buses with them before the changes is actually made. So maybe, I think it would really be important. Did you bring that with you? I have it here, but.
So thank you, Councillor Turnbull. I think you're referring to the public sessions that will be at Northlands Co-op.
Yep.
Scheduled for the 21st. That was today, so that occurred. 22nd, so tomorrow, and then on Thursday.
Yeah.
And the FLC on Friday.
Yeah, and tonight you have staff riding buses in the evenings on regular route buses people are using that and getting the information about the launch on the 28th. I think that's very well done, and I think sometimes people say we didn't get enough information, but this is pretty well done.
Thank you for raising it. If you don't mind, I'll just allow Mr. Dykstra to expand on it. He's the one that's executing and can probably take the opportunity to expand if you like.
Thank you, Commissioner Mastell. Thank you, Councillor Turnbull, through your worship. We've tried hard to get the word out. We've got a website. We've got a direct mail going to every house and business in the north. We've got an add-on to every house receiving a utility bill in the north. We've got 4 days of having the bus in high traffic areas there in the north at the co-op and at the FLC. I was there today and spoke to about a dozen people, and a lot of people looking, so when they see the mailer and they get the utility bill, I think they'll start to put the pieces together. The first week of the launch, as Commissioner Mastell mentioned, we'll be riding the bus. I've been meeting with community groups, particularly community groups that involve challenged riders, and I have had nothing but positive feedback at this point. They're excited because it's an equalizer. It treats their clientele just like every other transit rider, and they've been fairly excited to see where the project's going to go. So yes, we're doing our best to get the word out. I'm sure we'll miss some people, but we are putting a solid effort in.
Well, I'm certainly impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sommer.
Thank you, Mayor Cluxton. This plan does shift the scheduling and planning from the system to the rider. I still support this project, but I think that's something to keep in mind, that not all riders, some riders will struggle with that. I don't think we should forget that. But I just have a question about how many people are going to be affected by this. So there's 2 routes during weeknights that are going to be affected, and how many riders are we looking at that use these during those times?
So I should rephrase that, our pre-COVID ridership on these 2 routes averaged about 10 to 15 per hour, so about 7 people per bus, 10 to 15 per hour over 2 buses, 5 days a week. And so I don't know, I can do the math in my head real quick, but we're also down, and that's one of the reasons for the project is we hope to attract people by allowing them to travel more directly and have stops closer to where they want to get on and get off. So we're hoping to capture a few people back. But we selected this area intentionally because the impact will be minimal.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion for reception? Councillor Friedson. Councillor McIntosh. Call the vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next on our agenda under reports is item 5.1, the Public Services Committee meeting of September 14th for information.
If we could vote, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Our next report is item 5.2, the Administrative Committee meeting of September 16th for information.
I'll move in report for information.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Turnbull?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. So I know I'm going to put you on the spot through the Worship to our Commissioner, our CAO. On this RFP recommendation of general construction standing offer agreement, I'm sure I don't quite understand that, and I'm sure a lot of our citizens would not understand that either, because it's not something that we're used to hearing. So could you give us a short explanation of that, sir?
Through the chair, Commissioner Egert is on the phone, and this is his direct area of responsibility. Perhaps I'll ask Dennis if he'd like to comment, and I can augment if there's anything further needed.
All right, thank you, and through the chair. Councillor Turnbull, this particular one I'm actually quite excited about because it's one of the, I'll say, procurement instruments that we utilize to get good value for the city. Specifically, this is a standing offer agreement that it will be enforced for at least a year and has the option of renewing for an additional 2 one-year periods, so it could be in place for a 3-year period. One of the benefits of doing a standing offer arrangement is that we've predetermined or pre-negotiated a price for these type of services for general construction. When I look at the type of work that may be done for these type of small jobs, they are small jobs. They're jobs that are intended to be minor construction type of work in city facilities. You look at the list here. There's carpenters, drywalls, electricians, painters, gas fitters, mechanical, and so forth. But those are all pre-negotiated up front and then in place. So we just draw upon them when needed, so it's on demand, but the prices are fixed.
That's, anytime you can save us money, and the taxpayer money is great. So thank you for that explanation, and I feel so much better about spending that money now.
Thank you. Any other questions on this RFP?
Just your worship. Sorry.
Yep.
So just to dovetail on Councillor Turnbull's comments, so I understand the process, and I was looking at the criteria of that was weighed, I guess, as far as the supporting information, and the one that's catches my interest is unit rates provided demonstrate good value for money for the expected work. So there's a little bit of, there's a lot of objectivity here, but there's some subjectivity, I would argue. I guess my point would be there are a number of proposals here, if I'm one of the bidders who was not successful, is there an opportunity for direct feedback in relation to the criteria that was weighed, that finally determined who would be doing the work in the next couple of years here? So is there an opportunity to get feedback about where there were shortfalls or areas of improvement so that they can become more competitive in the future?
Through the chair, Councilor Dumanowski, thank you for that question. Yes, as you've noted, we have ranking criteria or evaluation criteria that we utilize. One of the biggest one is price, so that's a forefront criteria that we use. But we also look at previous experience. We look at the project team or the staff, the key personnel that have been assigned to this contract in terms of their experience and qualifications, their availability, and also how well they responded to the request for a proposal and how complete they were. So based on that, we had actually 6 qualified construction firms that did respond to this request for proposal, which is actually quite good. It's good competition. As part of the process, we do provide feedback to the ones that were not successful. We're careful not to share confidential information, but we will give them general comments in terms of our observation and how they could improve for the future.
Any other questions, comments on this RFP? All right, seeing none, if we could vote, all in favor? It was unanimous, thank you. Seeing no more business before this council, we're adjourned.